Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup off-season transfer news. Now, it's not news, this one, really. It's kind of a top 10, if you will. Now, I've looked around at all the transfers that have been happening, and I've picked out my top 10 players that have been let go from Overwatch League teams that are currently free agents that could be picked up in this off-season. Now, there's only one day left before you have to have at least 8 players signed to your rosters if you're an Overwatch League team. The thing is, they can still make signings after this period. They can make signings all the way through until June of next year, I believe. So, yeah, the deadline is there, but you still could see additions after this week. So, just to make you aware of that. Now, the first player I picked out is the former London Spitfire DPS Guard. Now, you may say, well, Guard didn't feature too much for London, and he didn't. But when he did feature, especially on the Sombra, he looked pretty darn good. And when he filled in for Birdring at times, he did actually look pretty decent. Although I don't think he's top end of the league level, I think he could be a good backup pickup for one of the teams in the middle of the league. So I think Guard deserves a spot on this list. The next person I'm going to pick out is the former Toronto Defiant and Boston Uprising support player, Neko. I've always liked Neko as a player. I think he's a pretty good player, especially on the Boston Uprising in the inaugural season. Boston Uprising's inaugural season was fantastic, and Neko was a big part of that. So I think Neko could be a free agent that might get picked up. Again, I'm not quite sure for what team right now. Looking at the movements going on, the spaces are running out. But in terms of squad depth, Neko could be a name that you see get picked up. And I definitely think he deserves another spot at the limelight after Toronto Defiant's disappointing first season in the league. I don't think it was all down to Neko. So, moving on after that, we have another support player let go from the Houston Outlaws. He's been at the Houston Outlaws, or was at the Houston Outlaws since their creation. It is Banny. Again, Banny is a really stable pick for a lot of teams. And maybe a good pickup for the Toronto Defiant, even if it's just as a backup player, considering he's Canadian. Wouldn't put it beyond them. Now, again, he didn't have the best of World Cups for Canada, but no one did for Canada, let's be honest. Canada really did fall apart at this World Cup, but I wouldn't put that down to Banny mainly. So, I still think he's a really good player, and I think he would be a really good off-season pickup for anyone in the league, unless you're really top end. But again, he's got a really diverse support hero pool, so he could be a really valuable, player for, even as a backup for Toronto Defiant. I could really see him in a really good role there. Now it's time to take a look at our first tank player. It's an off-tank player, it's Daco. He has been let go from the Atlanta Reign. Now, when we saw Daco in action for the Atlanta Reign, actually, he looked really good. And especially earlier on in the season, when Atlanta Reign didn't have Daco in their lineup, they kind of looked a bit lost without him. But as the season kind of went on, as D.Va became less and less meta, then he kind of fell out of favour when we saw more of the Hog, more of the Sigma, etc. So, Daco kind of fell out of favour more for FRD. I think Daco is still a really good player, and if he can vary his hero pool to the Sigma and the Hog, I think he's really good. And he's still really young. He's only 19. So I think he'd be a really good pickup in the off-tank role for a team that is looking for an off-tank. And believe me, there are a few of them at the moment, at the time of recording of this video. So, yeah, I think Daco will be a really good pickup for some teams. Moving on, and we have another DPS player, and this is Inlayer, another player let go from the Atlanta Reign. Inlayer had a really good World Cup for Team Russia, and I think the Atlanta Reign have got some, improvements in the DPS roles for certain players like Inlayer, so I'm not totally surprised that Atlanta Reign are looking to improve, but I still think there is a spot for Inlayer in the league in certain teams. Perhaps as a rotation DPS for someone like the Boston Uprising. The thing that doesn't work in Inlayer's favour, and it's something I've noticed for a lot of teams in this transfer period right now, Inlayer is a hit scan, and at the moment, the meta really doesn't favour hit scan, let's be honest. And I think there's a shift to having an overload of projectile-based players on your team. Now, this might come back to bite some people in the long run, but also, do we expect the meta to shift very, very soon? I don't know. And there is that thing that the transfer window is open for a long, long time, well into next year, so you can always change your squad if you needed to change to adapt to a meta, but then again, you need to filter those players into a team and build up the synergy, so you kind of want to do that from the start. Inlayer would be a really good pickup in that hit scan role if someone wanted him. Next up is a support player I rate actually pretty highly. This is Coma. He's been let go from the Shanghai Dragons. I really think Coma would be a big pickup for someone. He's completely free, he's got a lot of experience under his belt at teams like Runaway, Team Kongdu Panthera, and obviously Shanghai Dragons in the Overwatch League. So, he would, I think, would be a really, really good pickup as a main support for a team. Even to the likes of London Spitfire, I think Coma would be a really good pickup. You know, he has a really storied history in Overwatch, going back to Apex. He has experience. Yes, he's 24, he's a bit on the older side, but I think sometimes that can be valuable to teams to have that sort of experience on your team and guiding some of the younger players, perhaps. So I think Coma could be a really, really valuable pickup for one of the teams in the league if they decide to do it, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see him picked up. But we're getting to some really, really big players now. Next up, I'm talking about Bischu. Now, Bischu is kind of on the borderline here. He is actually older than Coma is. He's 25. Bischu has some really unique qualities, right? He's well known for his diva. We haven't seen much from him on the Sigma, and Sigma's kind of meta right now. Again, it's a similar thing to Daco. But what Bischu offers is really good communication. Bischu has been on a succession of teams at the Gladiators, at the Guangzhou Charge, where he has kind of been the glue that gels the team together, right? He's Korean, but he can speak English very well, he can speak Korean very well. So if you've got a mixed roster between Koreans and Europeans or an English-speaking country, then Bischu, as a translator, is fantastic in your team. He is really, really good at that. And, you know, as a shot caller as well, Bischu can be really, really good. Now, I'm thinking if Paris Eternal are going to fill their off-tank hole that they've got at the moment at the start of the season while they're waiting for Hanbin to come of age, Bischu could be perfect for the Paris Eternal. Absolutely perfect. I'm not saying that he'll be at the Paris Eternal all season long, but Bischu really could be a really good pickup for the Paris Eternal as they try and gel those new Element Mystique players into their roster. The thing is, I believe Cruz can speak Korean quite well. So, again, there's that, but I think Bischu could be really valuable to the Paris Eternal if they decide to pick him up. But again, I'm not coaches, I'm not organizations, so I don't know what they're thinking behind the scenes. But again, I think Bischu would be a really good pickup for the Paris Eternal. Next up, we're back to supports, and this is another one that's been let go from London Spitfire. It's, quite obviously, Birdring. Now, yeah, South Korea had a difficult World Cup. By no means a washout World Cup, but a difficult World Cup. Can we put that down to Birdring? No, we can't put it down to anyone right now. It was a shot calling thing. We don't know who the shot caller for South Korea at the World Cup was. So, we can't put it down to Birdring. Birdring is a very well-known name. Again, has a lot of history with Cloud9 Kongdu and Kongdu Panthera in Korea. Again, he has that experience of winning an Overwatch League. So, that's invaluable to a lot of teams. Birdring would be a really, really good pickup for a lot of teams. I'm thinking the likes of the Florida Mayhem here. Now, I know the Florida Mayhem had Hagapan, who was excellent in Spitfire, similar role to Birdring, but Birdring was better than Hagapan. Birdring would be a really good pickup in that role. He plays a good Moira, which is really, really meta at the moment. He can roll out the Ana, he's very good on Zen, and then, you know, we have to wait for Zen to come back into the meta, but he also has these weird picks that if you were really in dire straits and you needed a Roadhog, for example, he can play that, or you needed a Tracer, he can play that as well. So, I think Birdring would be a really good pickup for a team somewhere along the line. Next up, we have a big one. this is the Vancouver Titans, or the ex-Vancouver Titans main tank TiZi. Now, TiZi has been in the Overwatch League before with the London Spitfire, but he never actually got to play for them. He then went out to the XL2 Academy, then the Guangzhou Charge Academy, then he came to Chicken Contendies, then Grunto, and then he came back to the Vancouver Titans. Now, he was signed to the Vancouver Titans as a backup to Bumper, but when Bumper didn't kind of like adjust to the meta very well when we went to Orisa Sigma, in the playoffs, TiZi was crucial for the Vancouver Titans in their run to the final. So, TiZi actually featured pretty much throughout the playoffs over Bumper, who Bumper had been featured all season for the Vancouver Titans. So TiZi actually really, really good player, and another one that has history at a team like Runaway. So TiZi could be another really good main tank pickup for a team in the league. Again, main tank spots are pretty much full at the moment, but even if you wanted him as a backup, he would be really, really good. And especially with Orisa as meta right now, that's what he was playing for the Vancouver Titans during the playoffs, and he didn't look half bad. So, TiZi, he could be picked up by someone in the league. And the last name I want to pull out of the hat is a big, big name. And it came as a surprise to me when he was let go by the New York Excelsior. This is the off-tank Meko. Meko left the New York Excelsior, and we were all very surprised about this. Now, maybe this is because New York Excelsior aren't comfortable with him on the Sigma. Who knows? They haven't filled the spot yet. So, we don't know what's going on there. But Meko currently doesn't have a team. And I would be extremely surprised, unless he announces his retirement or something, which I doubt at the age of 22, I would be really surprised if a team doesn't pick him up. Really, really surprised. So, Meko, I think, in my opinion, is the biggest name on this list of 10 players. Meko has so much experience. At the World Cup qualifiers for South Korea, then obviously with LW Blue in Korean Contenders before or Apex I should say, before the Overwatch League started, and then he was straight into the Overwatch League with the New York Excelsior, finishing at number 1 in the standings in the inaugural season but losing out in the playoffs, and once again obviously New York lost out in the playoffs again this year. Meko has always looked like a really, really stable off-tank. So, another player that I think really, really should be picked up. Like, I was surprised that New York Excelsior let him go. And New York Excelsior are one of the best teams in the league. So, I would be very, very surprised not to see Meko picked up by another team in the Overwatch League. But, that ends my list of 10 players that are currently free agents from Overwatch League teams. Obviously, this is just 10 players. I could have put a lot more on this list because there have been quite a few people let go. And in the comment section below, if you want to, you can suggest some names of your own that could have been on the list. And perhaps where you think they might be best ended up. But there's a host of really, really good players here. You could make a really good team out of these players and just add a team to the league. But obviously that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of time. As I said, the transfer window goes right into next year. Even though the deadline for signing a minimum of 8 players is at the end of this week, they can still sign players well after that. So we could see a lot of movement going into Christmas and afterwards, depending on what scrims turn out like. Because obviously they're going to start scrimming now once they have their 8 players on board. But that is going to be it for this one. Obviously, if these players get picked up overnight, then this video, one of them will probably be null and void if one of them gets picked up, and I apologise for that. But there's nothing I can do about that. I record these the night before the day they go out. So that's some fun facts about my production for you. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.